Whenever you're ready to get going.
Okay. I think we can give it one more minute and then we'll get started here. Okay, why don't we get started? So the first item on the agenda is a report about the water main break that took place over the weekend, which I imagine at least some folks are aware of. For those who don't know, there was a water main break in our district. It's a water main that's on 71st Street and 2nd under the street. And on Sunday, sort of late morning, it broke and there was a large volume of water in the street. A lot of buildings in the area lost water for some time. It was repaired basically late that night, and I think water was restored at that point, and then the street was reopened the following afternoon, so Monday afternoon. So that's what took place. You know, we inquired with DEP just to get more information about what had happened, and they sent us, you know, a fairly detailed write-up of just the timeline of when things took place and that kind of thing. But I think the you know, the important thing is that you know, water was restored. Water has since been restored. It was restored later that day, and apparently the cause of the break is something that happens pretty routinely during the winter. It's you know, a lot of the pipes are very old, and it just happens that you know, with temperatures freezing and that kind of thing, that you know, these water mains tend to break during the winter. So it happened here and it's been fixed. So I don't know if there's additional questions about that or discussion, but I just wanted to mention that we had gotten an update from DEP about that and kind of a report about what happened. So. All right, so yes, Marco.
Thank you. The issue right here is our infrastructure. It has more than 100 years. What do you expect? The whole infrastructure is the use. So there's nothing strange for all of us that you can find this breaking everywhere. Last year you hear on the Upper West Side. Very soon you will be here anywhere in our community because this infrastructure was created more than 100 years. One more thing, the water system, there is a new system under the existing main water, and they don't dare to even close the main valves because in order to put the new system, because if they close, they never can open. So that is very old system. And this is a serious problem for our community, for any development in our community. And nobody pay attention to that. Just only at the time when it breaks, DEP comes and try to fix. Meanwhile, it is a nightmare in traffic. And sometimes some people, they don't have water for a couple of days. So we had to figure it out. How are we going to live with these kind of problems to the future? Because the more that time pass, the more likely we can have these kind of situations. And we have to be prepared. How? I don't have no idea yet. But this is normal that's going to happen from now on. And that's it. That's the only comments I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think you're 100% right that the fact that the pipes are as old as they are and the infrastructure is as old as it is a huge reason why these mains break the way they do. And I'm sure it played a role here. And unfortunately, given the way things are looking with the upcoming budgets, it seems like that's probably not going to be a priority to fix that stuff or upgrade it or modernize it in the near future. And it's just, hopefully something that we can all keep in mind when times are better and there is more money in the budget in the, when we're out of the lean times to make sure that even though it's not kind of top of mind, that it's something that we're still doing. Alita.
Russell, I just, Lynn, were you trying to raise your hand okay, you do have a member of the public who also has her physical hand raised.
And we didn't talk about the, once again, we didn't talk about the process. So why don't we, before we go to you, Lynn, we'll just, will give us the rundown of how to do the stuff on Zoom here.
Yeah. So if it's your first time at one of our meetings, we do have everybody muted, and the chat is just for troubleshooting problems with Zoom. So if you're wanting to comment on any of the discussion points during the meeting for Russell or for Cause to call on you, they'll need to see you raise your hand. So you'll go to the bottom of your screen, you'll click the participants button there, and a box will pop up. And in that box, we'll have a little button that says raise hand. If you click that button, your name will pop up at the top of the box, and Russell and Cause will be able to see you. And if you're on the phone, it's *9. So did you want to go to Lynn?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I live on East 71st, 300 East 71st. And it was a terrific, fast job. They came in and they fixed it. It was really amazing. So I just wanted to let the board know. I was surprised that they worked so fast, even fixing up the street after they tore it up. So however we got the word out, it worked out well for everybody, especially, with the holidays coming.
That's very good to hear. And we can let DEP know that and that we appreciate that.
Yeah, Russell, I've got a comment or a question. Does the water supply system, or does anybody know where all the valves are, or where most of the valves are? If they need to shut off just one block, if they know where the valves are and the working valves more, as Marco was saying, that would basically shorten the people affected if it's only a one block rather than the whole length of 3 or 4 blocks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the sort of specific details of how all this stuff works. I think, DEP certainly is very familiar with, with the water system, I imagine. They know where the valves are, and they, at this point, it's, this wasn't an unusual thing. I mean, I think they're used to dealing with water main breaks is my impression. So I think they know how to deal with them, and it's just a matter of getting out to do it, and they know how to address it. So from what I understand, I think they, it's not like the whole east side was without water or anything like that. Correct. I think it was fairly localized. Yeah, I'm looking at the report now. So there were 500 households without water that were impacted while the issue was going on. So it was, it was fairly localized, I think, in terms of the impact.
But 500 households, that could really be one building. Is that what they mean, households or buildings?
No, I think a household is like an apartment.
So theoretically, it could have been one building.
I mean, that would be a pretty big building, but
Yeah.
But yes, it's that that's sort of the scale, I think, of what we're talking about, sort of
Okay,
buildings
that's
and
good.
blocks rather than like whole huge swaths. All right, Alita.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Will. So I'm just wondering, as the city increases in density and population, both, well, not right now during the virus, but both office population and residential population, what impact does that have on the aging infrastructure?
A lot.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think that's the kind of thing that gets looked at during ULURP and the like, but in general, I mean, yeah, I would just sort of assume that it has an impact, but I don't know exactly how or why. And Craig's got his hand raised, so actually he probably has some idea of what the answer is. So let me go to Craig.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm not so sure that density has a dramatic impact because the city was built for density. I think it comes down to just its aging, antiquated infrastructure that has a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. And that's not to diminish the argument that some people have in terms of what density actually does in terms of impacts, but I don't think that's really contributing to the issue here in terms of why you have, whether it be this or whether you have the manhole fire that occurred at 89th and York a few days ago. That was disruptive. I think these things just happen on a cyclical basis or just on just randomly as a result of just the fact that the city is old. But I'm not aware of any studies or anything that formally relates density to such water main breaks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. One other thing, I know Marco's brought this up many times before in the past, but this will be something for next year that we could look at. Any new development or new building going up, maybe they could, fund some infrastructure replacement or additions or something like that. I mean, there's brand new buildings going up everywhere, and I'm sure for a few thousand, they could supply the money to fix up that block or certain areas with the funds for some infrastructure. But, that'll be for next year.
Yeah. All right, Marco has his hand up again, so we can, let's go back to Marco.
Oh, thank you. Definitely, density is a major problem. Let me give you an example of what happened to me, and then you understand where I'm coming from. I have a project on Jamaica Estates, and the owner said, you know what, I want to build 2 stories more on the top of the tree. And I said, yes, I can do that. The floor area allows to do that. So I don't think it's in a problem. I submit my paperwork to DOV. DOV review everything. And when they check everything, they said at the end, well, in order to approve you, now you got to go to DEP. When I went to DEP, they were laughing at me and saying, okay, you know that? You know what happened right here? The politicians, they changed the density, the maximum density for this capacity. And therefore, now we cannot do nothing. It was a political decision that is easier just only to change. But they talked to me and said, listen, now you have to calculate, it was like 40 blocks. I had to calculate the drainage of the whole area in Jamaica Estates to demonstrate to them that my development, which I include probably 2 or 3 bedrooms more, do not impact anymore in the sewer system as well as in the water. So they said, very simple, you have to calculate everything. So in other words, they told me, you cannot do nothing over there because our capacity has some limits in density. And the density is established in the whole city. And therefore, in our developments that are beyond what we expect to have it, yes, density is a major problem. Why? Because very simple. There are more people, you increase pressure on the pipes, and these pipes are very old. And what's going to happen? What do you expect? Do not break? It's going to break for age and for depression. And this is the biggest problem that we have in the whole city. This is not the upper side. The whole city has the same problem. So both are extremely important issues when we make a decisions in any change of densities. Densities that go beyond what is existing. Even though that the city said, oh, our 10 is okay. But when they're coming something that more than we expect, it is a serious business. It is a serious problem, not only for the water, but also for the sewer, because both are directly correlated from each other. In our community, I think, if I'm not wrong, we don't have this kind of problems because those planners, they did a very good job. They thought that we really need a very big sewer system. So, for instance, in 79th Street, I had a project, and I saw that they have the main sewer 7 feet high, versus the Jamaica State, they have a 14 feet inch pipe. So in our community, yes, the sewer is very well done, but not the water. Thank you.
Yeah, Craig's got his hand up again. Can we unmute Craig?
Sorry,
good.
I was just trying to get my video on. I didn't actually think that I did it, so it was unintentional, but I just sent Will an article from the New York Times from this past February that was just highlighting the seasonal nature of water main breaks, saying that 44% of them occur in December, January, and February because it has often to do with the freeze-thaw cycles that take place in addition to the aging nature of it. And it also highlights the work that the city is doing to continuously work to maintain and replace the system, but they can't keep up with it.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda.
Well, wait a minute. Oh, Wendy had her hand up. Yeah, Wendy has her hand up.
Okay.
I just did a quick and dirty search on scholar.google.com, and my search terms were density, infrastructure, water damage in New York City. And
You're a little muffled. Can you get closer to your microphone or turn it up or
okay,
something?
is this any better?
Yes.
Any better? Okay, great.
Yep.
Still mastering the technology, sorry. I did a quick and dirty search on scholar.google.com for density, infrastructure, water damage in New York City. And I came up with hundreds of articles that relate our infrastructure problems to climate change. I want to put, we've talked before in other committees about coastal resilience, and I've talked about climate change and overdevelopment. Of course, there's increased usage of all of our water mains when we put a 30-story building where a 4 or 5-story building used to be. I mean, that's just common sense. But in addition, the water table, and Marco can talk to this much better than I can, but our water table is rising, and it affects our pipes, and we've blasted through our granite, and so some of our underground structures are not as resilient as they once were. And I don't have much more to say, but if all of you are interested, rather than say whether there is or is not more stress on infrastructure due to greater development or overdevelopment, it's just worth doing a quick search yourself and actually looking and seeing if there's any data-driven studies. And I will stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I think, Marco, since you have already spoken twice on this, I think we're just going to move the agenda. So let's go to the next item, which is an introduction to environmental justice. So, everyone, of course, is familiar with the protest that took place starting over the summer after the death of George Floyd and continuing on, in response to the death of Breonna Taylor and many others. And, these are protests that swept the country. And here at Community Board 8, there was discussion about what we could be doing to address social justice issues. And there was a commitment to, focus more on that as a board. And in terms of how to do that, we decided both to create a social justice committee, but also to have all of the committees think about ways in which social justice issues impact the issues that the committees deal with, and address them there, because there are a lot of ways that these issues intersect. And so, there is a big social justice component to environment and sanitation issues, and environmental justice is very important. And so, we in the Environment and Sanitation Committee want to do our part to look at these issues. And so I asked Sandrea Coleman, who's a community board member, to talk to us a little bit about that and give us an introduction to environmental justice to help us address these issues going forward.
Okay. Greetings all, and thank you for this opportunity to speak a little bit about environmental justice. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have headphones, because the sirens and everything in Manhattan. So when it comes to environmental justice, it's basically about fair treatment and involvement of the masses, meaning that everyone has the same protections from environmental and health hazards, and equal access to the decision-making process, so that all people can have a healthy environment, and it also deals with also access to political power too. So when it comes to environmental justice, I listed a few issues and examples, but I always like to use the term, but not limited to, because you can't always just speak about everything. So I'm just gonna go down some items and expound on them a little bit, just to give you, the examples and reasoning. So the first one would be, where am I at? Losing my footing. Okay, sorry.
That's right.
Okay, inadequate access to healthy food. So that's a problem. So now we all experience this COVID-19 crisis together, and finances are different for some due to this pandemic. So we have food insecurities, and we also have people that are eating differently because their budget has changed. So that's a problem when you think of environmental justice, how you can't even afford certain foods. You also can look at how comparison to even purchasing steak in a supermarket. Some people buy sirloin, some people buy chuck steak because they cannot afford it, basically because of their funding. Also, some supermarkets won't, in certain areas, won't carry the higher grade or cut of steak of meat, because they know the people around them can't afford it. So why would they purchase it? Because it's not going to be beneficial to them, because it's just going to go to waste and something like that. So just something, when you think about the food, that's a part of why it's, deals with environmental justice. And it's broader than that, but I just wanted to use an example, just, use a steak, something so simple as a steak, that some people might not even know what chuck steak is. They might have not ever ate that, because they might eat the, higher cuts or better cuts of meat. It also deals with inadequate transportation. I believe we are doing pretty good in New York City regarding transportation and accessibility, because we have cars, right? City bikes and buses and trains and cars. But our cars, trains, and delivery trucks and buses assist greatly with the quality of air, right, that we breathe. So that part, we have the accessibility, but our accessibility is so great that we have something going on with our pollution, right? The air pollution, the air quality. So that is another part of environmental justice. So we have to figure out ways how to we always say, get the cars off the street, get people to ride. That's why we have these bikes out. But although we don't have the issues with transportation, we have too much transportation. So it has impacted us with our air quality and our air pollution, which is part of environmental justice. When you think about water pollution, you know, is our bottled water safe or our tap water safe? Who's following up if you live in a building, like I live in public housing, and they do a test on our water tanks, and then there's a report. We don't really see the report unless we ask. I asked for the report like the last several years to find out, you know, how is our water quality and stuff like that. So if you live in a private building, that's the same thing. How is your water quality? Do you know what you're drinking? Everybody doesn't buy bottled water. You know, you have filtration and systems and stuff like that, but it's still one of the problems, because where we're getting our water from, that's where environmental justice comes from. Is there any pollutants in the streams, any contaminations? Was that reported? Do we know? So that's something that we can get involved in if you're interested. Also, when you think about unsafe homes, that's part of environmental justice. Back to someone that lives in public housing. I live in NYCHA. We have bad living conditions. So that's an impact on us directly, as well as this community board and as well as New York City as a whole, how public housing residents have to live and how we are impacted greatly with just from mold to mildew, just common areas. Everybody in the city has a problem with rats and so forth, right? On the grounds outside. So, you know, but we're subject to it as well, but it's a little more with digging and stuff like that, and what they're doing with the generators. So those are a few things that, also I wanted to point out the poisoning of lead. Kids are being poisoned with lead in public housing. So those are some things that actually deals with environmental justice. And as I said, not limited to, but a few items that I listed to try to stir you up and get you to thinking, and you could further your studies or what you might want to get involved in. Why should we all be concerned about environmental justice? As humans, we should be. This is something that impacts us all, and environmental justice is important for us all as neighbors and for our society. When one person is impacted, we all are impacted. When we think about healthy eating and the vitality of eating and having access to fruits and vegetables at a store, when some people might not have that, they might just have a bodega or something on the corner of their store, and they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, that impacts your immune system, right? So I don't know how many people, I know I've caught a common cold from somebody in the office when I was working. That's very common. You get sick. Why? Because somebody else came in with an illness. And who did they get it from? And it could all stem back to somebody that's suffering, you know, from environmental justice, that is not eating properly, that is not getting their sunlight, the vitamin D that they need to build up their immune system. So that's almost it, I think. I think I covered everything that I was going to speak about. Also, lastly, how can we get involved with environmental justice? You know, basically, if you're wondering, pick something that impacts you and see where you can help out with. Do some studying, and because it's a whole lot of environmental justice is big. I listed a few items, but it impacts us all. And even with the political power, you know, people do not know how they, you know, even with the census, we go back to the census awareness, that's political power. People don't get involved in the census. They're not, I'm trying to think of the word. They're not familiar with their local elected officials. You know, so it's so many things that we can do as citizens to work into this, do some advocacy work into it and eradicate the problems. So we, not just in Community Board 8, but beyond, can make a difference when it comes to environmental justice. So that's basically it. I just wanted to pick, you know, talk about it a little bit and give you all some information and some insight and see if that's something that you all might want to get involved in some kind of way or form. But there's a lot of work to do, and I suggest people look into it and see. And it might be something that you can help change the world so we could all be living a little better. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks for speaking to us about this. And yeah, look, I think it's pretty clear from what you said that it's a wide-ranging issue, and there's just so many different ways in which there can be these disparate impacts, and in which you know, marginalized communities are particularly vulnerable in these areas, and so that is definitely something that the community is going to, that the committee is going to be trying to find ways to address these issues going forward. So I see that there are some hands up. Alita had raised her hand first, so we will go to you.
Thank you, Russell. I'm just wondering, Sandrea, about the impact of pesticides and fungicides and insecticides. Well, I guess that's the same thing on fruit, that how expensive it could be, and how that's part of what you were talking about with steak and the ability of people to buy, I guess, what's now considered clean food, and how that might vary by neighborhood and by market. In my supermarket, when they're not on sale, organic apples could be $1.50 or $2 each, which is an insane amount of money. And it makes it very difficult for an awful lot of people. I don't spend that on to buy fruit or vegetables that are not covered with stuff that we don't even know what they're covered with or what impact they might have. So I just thought I would kind of throw that out there when you're talking about food and environmental justice for communities.
Prime example. Thank you. Yeah, it is basically. Yeah. Yes.
All right, Barbara Rudder.
I was thinking of things that are more specific with environment. One is that we had a big forum. It was actually under the health committee, although I think it's a lot is environment, on asthma and the environment. And it really had to do with the marine transfer station. And it's coming back again that by they're not testing the environment. What we know for a fact is that the ones that are impacted the most are the ones that are in the projects and so on that are getting asthma. It's really affecting it. And we had a meeting that absolutely said that was true. So we have to make sure that even something, if we work on something as simple as marine transfer, and why aren't you testing it to see what environmental impacts the garbage trucks are having and so on. The other one is open space, is both parks and environment. That we knew during this COVID period how important it was for people to get out and get some fresh air. And the more the smaller your apartment with more people in it and more intergeneration, the more necessity it was to get out and do so. And in this area, we are lacking open space. And I think it's very important. It doesn't sound like parks should be high on our budget list, but it really should be, and something that's very much environmental. A third comment I would make that I don't believe is true in our committee. I read a book that was so that impacted me so much. And it was about the lead in the water. Oh God, why am I blank now? Where was that problem?
Flint.
What?
Flint, Michigan?
Flint, Michigan. I'm sorry, it went blank. Flint, Michigan, the story about how one doctor unearthed it. And it was just a political move. And why should we care about the poor people and the ones in the projects? Why should we care if we can make it cheaper by not having clean water that impacts why should we care? We should absolutely care. It was a tragic story, something that hasn't quite left me. It was such a powerful story about how they discovered it and how the kids were impacted so quickly. So lead is certainly an extremely important thing in both our water and, of course, in the paint and so on. Rodents is a problem that needs to be. Then I'm trying to think of things that are definitely environmental. The food is something I would like my committee to eventually, after the 42 other things that have come in front of us, to talk about. We are getting something on First Avenue and 91st Street. that will be called a supermarket instead of a pantry, then I think we'll have a wider range of food for people who are food deprived to choose from. So that's the type of thing we can support, fight for, and work with. But there's so many environmental problems that are around. The latest thing is, why does your water taste bad? Well, they're saying it's just because the foliage has changed and all of that. I have been drinking bottled water because it made me a little bit nervous. Some people have noticed that their water has changed. Is there a reason for it? And these are things that impact all of us. And I think especially those that are where equity hasn't been served properly with it. So that's my feeling, and that's, I think, is focused on environment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. I was actually at the ribbon cutting for the supermarket style
Yes.
food pantry. Yes, I was there, and I was asked to speak as well. Yes, that's going to be a great outlet for people here at the community, in our community, because
Mhm.
food insecurities is real. People are experiencing, and not just in public housing. People incomes have changed. So, and I just want to make note that, to be clear, there are many residents in public housing that are living with mold and mildew to this
Mold and
day.
mildew is another thing.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Sandra. That was on
So
my list
that,
also.
yeah. So that's one of the problems, and for some reason it seems like it can't be eradicated. They have came to certain people apartments and did the removal, and it's back again.
Mhm.
But it comes with it's all about our infrastructure. The inside of these buildings. They need to redo the pipes, and there's so much work to be done, and nothing's being done, sadly. So they do patchwork, and it comes right back. So I actually was on the rollout of Jemani Williams, the public advocate's worst landlord list. I was at the presser, and there was
Yeah.
a little bit of footage on me speaking
Okay.
about, in the neighborhood. So, I mean,
I
it's
didn't see it.
real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
NYCHA got the worst landlord award. I
I
don't
might
think
drop the link to
to
Will.
Will.
Sorry. Yeah. If I
Great.
can
Sure.
find
Yeah,
it,
that'd be great.
and
Right.
y'all could it's a 1-minute clip y'all could see, and maybe he could air it before y'all go off, if I get it in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let's go to Craig.
Hi again. First, I just want to thank Sandra for bringing this issue forward to this committee. And I think it's something that we should be addressing on all committees. As an urban planner, at this point, anyone who goes to grad school for urban planning, environmental justice is really front and center right now in terms of the curriculum. And that's something that is really important to us planners. And I want to think more about how we can try to address this more front and center in terms of everything that we do. One thing I just want to mention, and this isn't necessarily environmental justice per se, but just something to think about as we think about the environment as a whole and things that we can take care of. And as I think people are well aware of, one of the biggest issues we have here as a city is the urban heat island effect, meaning that we have higher temperatures here because of all the impermeable surfaces that we have and all the buildings that we have. And I think we need to try to, from at least this committee's perspective, try to perhaps think about how we can address the issue through more greenery, whether it be planting of more trees along our streets, and promoting programs that can encourage buildings to retrofit themselves to
I'm gonna mute myself. Sorry.
their emissions and become more efficient. Green roofs, for example. But I don't know if anyone's highlighted the fact that now the city is requiring larger residential buildings to be graded for their I guess energy efficiency and provided scores. And I think that's extremely helpful for people to understand what they can do, because this all really ties together in terms of the warmer the city is as a result of the urban heat island effect, the more disparate impacts that are felt, especially among those who don't have air conditioning and are living in buildings that have ventilation issues. So I think that these are things that as a committee, we may want to be thinking about more as we look forward.
Thank you. I see we have a comment from Andrew Ravishir, has his hand up.
Hi, thank you so much. Craig, I am so thrilled that you brought up the urban heat island effect, because that is a really significant issue that is affecting all New Yorkers, but especially Black New Yorkers. And while it may just seem like a hassle that temperatures are hotter, it increases air pollution, it worsens our respiratory health, which means it worsens our cardiovascular health. It's been shown that it affects Black mothers and then their children and their babies at an exceptionally higher rate. So it's actually generational trauma that we're inflicting on our Black neighbors. And so I'm so happy you brought it up. Green remediation efforts are super important, but they are not going to be sufficient, because the Bank of America building, for example, in Midtown, was heralded as this new tall green building. And they found that because of the types of computers and energy systems that they used, and specifically that the workers used, it was actually one of the worst polluting buildings in the cities. And so green remediation efforts are important, but we also need an actual height cap, and we need it of 210 feet. And that will tie in very nicely with the environmental justice work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Marco.
Thank you. I'm going to make a quick comment for the topic that we just passed. All the water, all the pipes in the water are below of the frozen line, meaning that usually this is why we don't have problems affecting when the weather is too cold, and that is this is a nightmare for any designer. Okay, now going back to the points. The indoor air quality. The indoor air quality, you're talking about mold. Mold basically is produced for two things, basically, either condensation or leaks. And the public housing is more likely leaks. And probably sometimes they put the air conditioned, those people, they put on the windows, and the water ready to leak outside, the condensation ready to look outside, to throw outside, they throw inside. And the only thing that you need to grow mold is you need to have two things, food and water. The water is coming from the condensation, and the food is in the wood, sheetrock, all of this. This is a nightmare for the designers. So with respect for an outside, something that we didn't talk is about Legionella. The Legionella usually it happens in cool towers. And the cool towers, basically what it does is constantly they pull out the heat from inside of the building and pass the water, and they remove the heat. And this water is constantly moving outside, and then there is lack, even though that now there is a regulations, but they're supposed to check this water, because over there in these places you find rats, you find pigeons, you find flies that die, and this is what they grow Legionella. With the issue of the grading, yes, the grading is have two connotations. The first connotation is right now they are obligating everybody to be in compliance with the grading until 2025, which basically everybody can grade whatever they want. But after the 2025, the next step is now you have to go 40% the reduction of the consumption of energy. 40% for 2030, and that's going to be a nightmare. I don't know how they're going to achieve, because most of the buildings are not properly designed for this kind of situation. And finally, I think the heat island effect. This is, first of all, we have to understand what is the green island effect, which basically is during the day the black bodies, meaning that the roads, the roofs, they are black and they absorb a lot of energy and during the day. So if somebody have an opportunity to walk on the roof, See, if it's outside, it's 110 degrees. On the roof, it's probably 120. So they absorb a lot of energy. At night, the temperature drops, but the temperature during the night, they release the heat outside. So basically, there is no relief for those people that do not have air conditioning, because when they open the window, the heat rise and the heat go inside. So this is, but there are solutions over there. You can paint white and with the tendency to reflect the energy. But there are very good solutions of that, even the green roofs. With respect to, they mentioned about Bank of America, this is a green building. We have to differentiate between what is green building or what is the certification that the green building does. Green building does is basically a commercial certification. This is not a sustainable certification. So the only thing is they messed up these people. What they do is a series of questions, and these questions basically they pull up from the building code and they make a questions, and then they said, okay, if you do that, okay, you have 1 point. You do that, you make 1 point. In the case of the Bank of America, what they did is, oh, you messed up with the facade, everything glass. So they consume more energy. It's more logical because the glass is the less resistant materials to stop the lose of energy or gain energy. So what they do is, these guys, they are very smart. They said, okay, at midnight, the energy is very low. Since it's very low, I'm going to store it in a big batteries, and then I can waste during the day. And that's this green building. They graded, they give you some points, and that's where they reach the best grading that green building does. So basically, we have to always to differentiate between what is green buildings, what is sustainable, or better known as a net zero buildings. Net zero building, that is actually real sustainable. And we have one building net zero in our community, only one. And that is the building in Cornell University in Roosevelt Island. And this is, I think, is one of the best examples that actually they did very well. They conserve the energy, I think it's maybe 80% or 90%, which is very great. So I think I talk a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I jump in if
Sure.
it's okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. I had muted myself because I found the video, and sadly I had to go mute because it was playing. I didn't want it to play, so I apologize for that. In NYCHA, the mold and mildew is not actually due to our ACs. It's actually because of the pipes, the leaks that we have. The pipes are the same pipes from when the buildings were built in the 50s or 60s. And until they burst, sadly, that's the only reason they'll come out and do something. And it's just a lot of patchwork. So that's one of the problems. There's leaks. I had my whole bathroom, the tiles broken, my wall broken because of leaks. And they fixed it and they replastered and everything. And now I have the leak again. So, and it's just crazy. So they have to go further because they, like I said, they literally broke my wall, and I was like 4 months with this thick plastic so I can take a shower. And it was kind of spooky just to even do that. But, and this is just the life that sadly some people in public housing have to live through because it's the infrastructure. Yeah. I just wanted to share that because it's not our ACs, the mildew and the leaks, it's the infrastructure.
Thank you. Alita.
Thanks, Russell. So a couple of things. I went to a presentation as part of Open House New York a couple of years ago, and there's actually a company, I think in Brooklyn, that does green roofs. And in some buildings somewhere along the East River, I'm guessing Midtown and below, they put up a whole forest up there of trees. So that might have some impact. I don't know if it's enough to make up for the heat that emanates from these buildings. The other thing is, whoever said it's the tall new buildings that have the environmental impact or rating. I live in a small 32 unit apartment building, and we've been rated, and other small buildings on the side streets have been rated as well. I don't know what they mean. They don't come with any kinds of evaluative information or public information. And then last, it seems like a vicious cycle, the island warming effect, because as it gets warmer, we need more air conditioning, we need more power to support cooling it, and that increased level of power leads to more warming. There are more rats. There are more bugs. It's some kind of cycle. So I think it's great that that we're looking into this because it really matters for quality of life. Thank you.
Thanks. Marco.
Oh, thank you. About the NYCHA, I study very well NYCHA. I know what it is. They have 3,800 complaints, starting from the majority are the elevator. And also they have all the problems, lead paints and everything. I'm fully aware of that. And I have a very good plan for that. You're right. It has to be demolished, those buildings. And absolutely, but I don't want to go in that direction because this is not the right forum. But I do have a beautiful plan for that. And we respect, somebody mentioned, Alida, she just mentioned, okay, those buildings that are rated are only those buildings that have 25,000 square feet or more, because the city find out that the total number of buildings, small buildings, smaller than 25,000, I think is 70%. And the buildings more than 25%, more than 25,000 square feet are 20%. But these 20%, they produce more pollution than the small buildings. And that is what the city target, the 25,000 square feet buildings or bigger. And so then they have obligated to be rated. And the rating is very, very, very simple. It's just only a very, you stick the information in the web, and they connect with the state, and they give you right away the percentage. The main issue will be is when you have to reduce 40% of those emissions, and the 40%, that will be very hard because they have a factor that calculate properly what is the BTUs or what is the energy that this building is supposed to use. And that is, I think, is a nightmare for the designer. And not only that, for that period of time, there is very strong regulations because there are some professionals, they don't have ethical value, even though that we are very careful, certify every 3 years. Now the penalties for the professional that want to certify something, it will be $500,000 and a jail. So if a designer decided to put that any specific building is not true, the information, he has a serious problem to face. So I think they're getting serious in that direction. I don't know how they're going to enforce. That's the only problem. Thank you.
Yeah, before you go, Marco,
Yep.
do you have the percentages of the rating, how they do it? I know it's the total energy divided by the square footage. That'll give you a number. But then what are the ranges? They've got A, B, C, D.
Oh, well,
What is the A? Do you have the figures?
No, just only they have a factor, and they right away they give. It's very simple calculations. You go to the Department of Buildings web, and you stick the information, and it's very simple, and they give you even the chart that you have to put in the entrance of the buildings. It's just only to notify ourselves or the owners of the big buildings of 25,000 square feet or more. They are notified that they are doing very poor or they are doing good, and whatever it is, on 2025, they're gonna multiply the information that you provide for a factor, and this factor is for all the buildings, and then you have to reduce 40% of the energy. But between you and me, it's not hard. By the way, if you understand how to build, you understand how to. Myself, I produce affordable housing with 80 or 90% of reduction of energy. So the bills in my houses are very, very low, extremely low. I pay 110 or 1510 of what it usually building from HPD pays. So I think it's easier. If I can do, anybody can do it. The only thing is you have to understand how it works, how to become sustainable. And I'm doing myself for 2 reasons, because I receive a special training. I was in the training. I learned that, but when I do in my own houses, then it was a nightmare because something that I didn't pay attention. Oh, the professor didn't explain it properly. I have to resolve myself, and then I figured it out. It was a very good experience, and it's doable. And right now, I'm doing myself to reduce 80% of the energy. So it's nothing hard. The only thing is I admire the big buildings such as the Cornell building on Roosevelt Island. That's I'm very interested to visit to see what they did, because I found that there are serious challenges. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.
Wendy.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak again. I want to make a quick comment about heat island index and pollution from buildings. Energy consumption is one problem because there's always going to be a byproduct of having consumed energy. There's no way around that. We can minimize and we can make acceptable levels, and we can do a cost benefit analysis in the environment, but there's always going to be some waste. It's a matter of how much we can tolerate. That's partly problem number one. With the heat island index, it's not just a matter of reflective material. That is a really important factor, but it's really the interaction between taller buildings in trapping not only warm air, but particulate matter. And that's something I wanted to address because that's something this committee really could look at, which is if we don't measure anything, I don't mean us as a committee, but if the city, if authorities don't measure anything, then of course it's not a problem, right? But it is a problem, and we know that it's a problem. So there's nothing that says, I went on Amazon, there are perfectly reasonable, decent, they may not be the highest, best quality in the universe, but they're reasonable places to start that are between $50 and $250 per unit. And there's no reason why we can't have an initiative to place them around and to have either a not-for-profit or some schools, which are also not-for-profits, be able to help kids to monitor with supervisory approval of teachers that are qualified, science teachers, to really take a look at what is happening. For the last 3 days, we had air quality alerts on our phones. When we looked at the weather, it said bad air quality here in our community, our local CB8 community. There's no reason for that. We don't have heavy industry, and we're not a heavy commuter corridor right here, heavier than other, superhighway corridors. There's no reason why we can't actually begin an initiative to measure air quality, including mold, but also other particulate matter, which contributes to asthma. You're more predisposed to having asthma if you have pre-existing conditions, and those can be caused by mold, amongst other conditions, including scarcity of medical access to medical care. I won't go on because you see where I'm headed, but I think one initiative that could happen as a result of this meeting is that we could start to put into place some kind of air quality monitoring, and it doesn't cost $1 million. We're at some hearing, all of us. I see all your faces. We were all of us at the same hearings where we heard the city that it said that it would cost like $1 million to put some testing. What a lot of nonsense. We could do something. It doesn't have to be the most official thing, but it gives us an idea of what we're looking at. Because if Apple can tell me that the air is polluted, it's just not a secret. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks. All right, before we move to the next item, we do have the clip that Sandrea had mentioned that talks about some of the issues in NYCHA, including some of the environmental issues. So let's show that. It's a short clip.
Hi, I am Sandrea I. Coleman. I live currently in Isaac Houses. I have been here for 5 years. We have a lot of issues over here in this development, even before COVID-19, but currently and prior to, we've had inoperable elevators. We've had no heat, no hot water. We've had infestation of mice, roaches, rats running around. The boilers are not working properly. We actually had to file a HP housing part lawsuit on December 13th of 2019. We did that to receive repairs. We had to force and use the legal system to get repairs in our apartments and our common areas, so we don't have to deal with just the exacerbation of what has happened to public housing. We pay our rent. We are entitled to our repairs. We are entitled to humane living conditions instead of inhumane living conditions. It is unhealthy to live in NYCHA for the residents that live here. It's also unhealthy for the workers. Some of the solutions I believe that NYCHA can do, first and foremost, we need the funding. city, state, and federal government needs to step up. We need more manpower. We need more maintenance. We need more caretakers to keep the grounds clean.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was actually my bathroom. That's my bathroom.
Wow.
And that's what they repaired, and that's what came back. It's worse now than it was before. That's my bathroom. And because of COVID, I can't have, I don't want people coming in doing all types of people coming in doing the work. So I'm stuck with it for now. But that's my bathroom. After they repaired it and broke the wall.
Jeez. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
telling
you.
us about these issues. Yeah, this is a big help. All right, well, let's move to the next agenda item here. And actually, Barbara mentioned the MTS. So this is, it's an old business item, and we're going to go through it pretty briefly here because there's not a whole lot new to report. But at our last meeting, we had an extensive discussion about air quality monitoring at the Marine Transfer Station and various issues with it, and problems with the air quality report that had come out in July, and also other problems with air quality monitoring that we were hoping to have DSNY address. And we actually had a number of people from the Community Advisory Group, the CAG, on the at the meeting, which was very helpful because they were particularly knowledgeable about many of the issues. So unfortunately, we didn't have an engineer at that an engineer from DSNY at that meeting because of family circumstances that prevented that person from coming. And here, we weren't able to get somebody, unfortunately, this close to Christmas to speak to us this time. But we had mentioned last time, a letter to, memorialize many of the problems that there are with the air quality monitoring, and pointing out the inadequacy of it and asking for changes to be made. And the letter is going to go out, I think probably either later tonight or tomorrow would be my guess. But basically, that's going to list the various issues and ask for a response from DSNY about those. And so I think in the new year, we will have more to report, and we will get somebody who's an engineer and knows about the monitoring there and is going to be able to speak, substantively to the technical aspects of it in the new year. So that's just the update, and it's that we're continuing to work on it and going to have more coming on it. So that's what's going on. I don't think there's any other old business or new business, right, Kaz?
I don't think so, unless anybody else has anything.
All right. So thank you, everybody, very much for joining, and happy holidays. Enjoy the next week and a half of celebration. We'll see you in the new year.
Good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Will.
Take care.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.